Somebody can return you.
This is thank you. Yes, we got here. I'll go and put it over here. Yeah.
I met you at the door there. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I want to catch up. I talked to,
Here, if you don't mind, I'll just
anyway,
I'll
I told him to give me
other
that.
people's sign. Yeah, dear, that way we don't walk out as much. Go ahead right there.
I say that way.
Okay, that's your
This is the retired state employee. So this is what you're
Well, he's got a great pension then, set for life.
I don't know about that. That might, that might not happen too.
I was told in the last place, I don't know these issues as well, some of the others didn't come up, but I have some sort of understanding. I was told that they come on the slaughterhouses in the United States. It was how long ago?
Cleveland Highway.
We need to, I don't want to, I got to go. We need,
You should see his wife. She's after 14 years. She's over there.
If you don't mind, if you give me a call. Discuss stuff on the phone.
That's what I do.
You talk about it. I'm
Down there,
the library.
Well, it's been a Anyway, those were my issues. If you'd be willing to support us, we need somebody on this. I know one member.
How are you doing, Sarah?
I did see numbers on mine.
We have to take care of her because
Lois, are you doing this?
you're doing it. Good, how about you?
Really? You don't think
Yeah, that's right.
I know it early Saturday and with the snow, I didn't know what to expect. Every time I come into Lovelock, we've always had a nice crowd. My wife and I have come in here many times when I campaigned before for the Secretary of State's race and several times since in the Lincoln Day dinner. In fact, my wife and I were at the initial event that was held in Lovelock for the Lock the Love ceremony. And we went back looking for our lock. We couldn't find it. There's so many of them out there now. The sad thing about it is she's keeping the lock and she's holding it over me.
I still have the key.
It's the key. She can unlock it at any point, so I gotta be careful. I'm going to give you a little background about myself and why I'm running for this office and what I hope to do when I get in office. But more importantly, I want to take your questions, listen to what you have to say so I can understand better what your feelings are. That's what we're trying to do in this tour. My wife Amy over here, and my youngest child, which is my oldest son, Jerry, and Ashley's over here. I have two other girls, Ava and Lois, and they'll come in, and they're hams, so they'll come in here, I'm sure, introduce themselves. But what we're trying to do in this tour, it's a 4-day tour, and we're going through 14 towns around the state, and just want to listen and understand what the concerns are around the state. I grew up here in Nevada. My dad moved, took a basketball coaching job at UNLV in 1974, and I had an opportunity to play for my dad at UNLV, and in fact, I'm very proud I was a member of the school's first #1 ranked basketball program there. I went off to law school and came back to Las Vegas, practiced law for 7 years, and currently I run 2 small businesses in Nevada now. One is a family-owned commercial real estate business. It's basically one project that my family and I are developing, and the other is a nonprofit company which my brother and I founded to help underprivileged children in Southern Nevada. It's a sports academy where we teach them the proper techniques and really life traits that you learn when you're playing sports. I understand the problems that we're facing here in our country, here in Nevada, living here most of my life, raising my family here and understanding the difficulties families are having, and also very importantly, all the problems small business people have in trying to survive in these environments. I wanted to get into public service through my early years watching the great things Senator Laxalt did when he was a senator for our great state. And I also love Governor DeBlazier out of California. He's Armenian like I am, and there aren't a whole lot of us around, so we get proud when we see what we're up there. With those two people inspiring me, I went to law school with the one purpose, and that was to get into public service. I believe if you go into public service with the right intent, the right desires, and with your true convictions, you can accomplish great things and really do some wonderful things with your life. And I hope I can do that. My mother has been in public service for 24 years, 12 as a school board member and 12 as a city councilwoman. I have the greatest respect for what she's been able to accomplish and her integrity and honesty. I hope when I get ready to retire, my children can feel the same way about me. Now, with respect to my political philosophy, I believe almost completely opposite with everything that's happening right now with our current administration and what Harry Reid is doing. We have problems, as we talked about. All of you understand. We have severe problems here in our country. The basic philosophy of this current administration and Harry Reid is the best answer to these problems are let's get government more involved in this decision making, more involved in the ownership, spend more government money, and government will get us out of this problem because government is the best solution. And I firmly and 1,000% believe that's the complete opposite. I believe individuals, small businesses, the people of this country can make their own decisions and should make their own decisions. They are the best answer to the problems that we face. And if we would just give them the tools to succeed, we will get out of this economic crisis. What American, and I don't care if you're Republican, you're Democrat, or you're independent, what American is not frightened when they see our government taking taxpayer dollars to bail out one company while we don't bail out another company? And let me even expand upon bail out one failing company that had irresponsible direction and policies, and then a whole other company, Lehman Brothers, weren't saving Merrill Lynch, or weren't saving, we're going to do that. Then they go into the insurance industry and takes taxpayer dollars and spends billions of dollars to bail out the insurance industry. And then they say, you know what? We believe the auto industry is important, so we're going to bail them out because probably they have a lot of union workers that are going to vote our way. So let's bail them out. But we're going to leave the gaming industry, the construction industry, all these industries, the small businesses here in our country. We're going to let them spend for themselves because they don't have the political clout I need. Anytime you get government involved and give them the ability to do these type of things, you have this type of a problem. Picking and choosing industries are going to be determined based upon the power that these lobbyists and special interest groups have and what they get into their control over these legislators. I firmly believe our country is tired of long-term partisan politicians that embolden these special interest groups. I believe our country is tired of party insiders, people that are working for the party as opposed to the people of the state. I am running for this office because I want to change the direction that the leadership of Washington has taken us, but I want to be a representative of you, the people of Nevada. I want to go back to Washington, D.C. and do what's best for the state, what's best for our country, do what's right irrespective of any power leadership positions I could get to, or what my party is trying to influence me on, or what the special interest groups want to interest you on. We are public service of you, the people. We serve you, the public, and we need to get representatives in office that understand that. We are not politicians. If we can go back to Washington, if you get enough people to go back to Washington as public servants, we will get we will turn the government around, and people will start again appreciating people in public service instead of the skepticism that's out there right now. The help, and it hasn't changed with Reid. It's gone from those bailouts to the stimulus money. He believes that we can turn the economy around by spending $800-some billion by creating more government programs and more government jobs, and that's going to turn the economy around. That has never worked in the history of our society. It didn't work during the Great Depression. It's not working now. The way you turn the economy around is you've got to invest back into the private sector. The 70% of our economy is based upon small businesses here in Nevada. We have to give these small businesses the tools and the means to succeed, and we'll turn the economy around. It'll be longer lasting, more fulfilling. Think about this now. You create a government job, the person's job ends. When the job ends, or we keep funding them with government money until it's all over. When you create a private job, In the private sector, the person who's hired not only keeps their job, but probably gets a raise if the business is successful. Then they're going to hire another person, then another person, and it expands. We've got to go back to doing what made our country great. Invest in the entrepreneurial spirit of the American workers by getting government off our backs and out of our wallets. And the way you do that is we need to, first of all, cut the tax rates that our businesses are being imposed upon our businesses now. Second of all, and more importantly, we need to lessen these ridiculously burdensome regulations that are being imposed upon businesses that are preventing them from getting started and being successful in this world economy. Yes, 2 days ago, our days are running together. 2 days ago, my family and I were in Hawthorne, and we met a guy who said, I got a mining claim, and I got ore that's half the ore is on the surface. I can pick it up, and I got buyers that'll buy it. I applied for a permit with the BLM, and they told me there's so many applications out there right now that we can't get yours for a year. And maybe in 7 years, we can get you fully permitted so you can start working. We need jobs now. We need taxpayers. We need some tax revenue now created by these jobs. Why would we handcuff a business who, he told me he could create 300 jobs. They would hire 300 workers to mine that claim if they would just allow them to get started. You know, there's a story, my grandmother and grandfather were farmers in the San Joaquin Valley, and now my uncle is, and they have been since the 1940s. The farmers in the San Joaquin Valley in Central California they can't get the water they need to survive. The farmers out there can't get the water they need to survive because our government is saying we have to protect the smelts, and we're not going to allow them to die, so we're going to starve the farmers and the cattlemen and starve us as people who need their products. Does any of that make sense? Why are we doing this and handcuffing our businesses? We need to get representation in Washington of people who understand these difficulties, and I certainly understand those. Let me open it up to some questions, and then if we miss anything, I'll get back at the very end and close with a few statements, if that's okay with you.
I have a question. Well, earlier you mentioned the layman, difficult, the layman Goldman Sachs.
Yes.
Do you recommend that layman should have been saved as well as Goldman Sachs, or both should have been allowed to fail?
What I said, no, I believe there should never have been a stimulus package. What I was doing was leading you, showing you why when we allow government to pick and choose what happens. Now in this race, I'm winning the general election against Harry Reid in all 12 polls that have come out, and outside the margin of error, I'm the only candidate doing that. The last two polls have had 12 and 14%, even though Reid's ran $2 million in TV time these past few months. However, the primary is very close right now. Myself and Sue Lovelock are within 2 points of each other. And every place I go, they ask me, what's the difference between you and Sue? And to run a campaign, you have to explain what the differences are. I believe the first bailout of the financial institutions, which is your question, was the worst thing we could have done for our country. What we did was we put a Band-Aid on a sore that is now festering and getting worse and worse and worse, and we're going to pay a worse price later. Furthermore, it led to the second bailout, the third bailout, and the fourth bailout. Now, Sue was quoted in the Nevada appeal as saying, and I'm going to quote it correctly, she could not say she would have voted no for the first bailout. Well, I'll tell you, I would have voted no. I don't see how you could vote for that and still claim to follow the Constitution, do what's right for our country. So that's one of the differences between us. You have a question?
Yeah, Harry's got 25 million. And I think he basically said he's going to vaporize anybody that runs against him.
Yes.
Now, are your plans to run a campaign like Brown did in Massachusetts? And I don't think he ever got negative. And there's a lot to get negative about Harry, but I mean, there's enough difference in you two, I would think. I mean, what have you got advisors and planners and?
This is Harry Reid's strategy. It has to be his strategy. He can't run TV ads or anything else to make people like him here in Nevada. He's tried that, and his numbers have gotten worse. In fact, I have a friend of mine that produces movies, and he said Reid is like a bad trailer. The more you watch the TV ads, the worse people think of him. So his only other option to get elected is to tear down his opponent, vaporize his opponent, which is what Reid's staff said. So that when people go to the election, they're going to say, I don't like this guy, but I don't like this guy. At least this guy is a majority leader. Let's vote him back in office. There's no doubt that's going to be his strategy. As such, one of the reasons, I mean, I hear some of the candidates in the race say, one of them that's looking at running the race now saying, I got the best chance of beating Reid, so you should vote for me. We need the person who has the best chance. Well, we all want Reid out. and we want to pick someone who can win. There's no doubt I can beat Reed. I'm beating him in 12 straight polls. I'm beating him by 14%, and the last one higher than anybody else. So I can beat Reed, as can many other people, including Drew, my good friend from Dixie. You probably could beat him if you wanted to put your name in right now, Drew. The key issue is what person do you want in there to run against him? I could run against Reed, and I got an advantage of it that nobody else does. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to take a minute to go through this. But I'll give you the background of my involvement with Reed. I've always wanted to get into public service, as I mentioned. In 2004, when I moved back to Las Vegas, I decided I was going to run for the state senate. At that time, if you remember, in 2004, every statewide candidate was a Republican, and every single one of them decided not to run against Reed. So I was requested by the National Republican Senatorial Committee to go back to Washington, D.C. and look at running against Reed, which I did. When I came back into town, within 2 days, I had 2 mutual friends contact me and say, Danny, you have no idea what you did. Harry Reid is so mad that you would even think about running against him. He's going to destroy you, he's going to destroy your character, and your political career is over. Naive as I am, I said, you know, what's this guy going to say about me? I might have a few crazy nights here or there when I was younger, but there's nothing that he's going to be able to hurt me with. Well, I run for the state senate, and I run for the United States, the Secretary of State. I run in both races. Both of them, I was a huge underdog. The state senate race, the district, it was a 2-time incumbent with a district that was almost 20% more Democrats. My wife and I, and God bless her, she was pregnant with twins, pushing a stroller. We walked 20 straight weeks every single day except Sundays. 3 days we didn't walk because it either rained too much or there was a fundraiser. Every single day we worked our tail off. I'm winning coming into early voting. The same with the Secretary of State's race. I ran against a former governor's son. Everybody said I didn't have a chance, and I'm beating him, in fact, pretty substantially coming into early voting. Then they hit me with these attack pieces saying I was involved in telemarketing fraud when I was an attorney. Now, not only was that lies and not true, it went past the political spin that is legally available. I mean, you know, in the political part, you can take a small thing that's true and then expand it and try to word it wrong. These were out lies, complete falsity, so I sued the guy. You know, a lot of people, and I think this is important when we talk about who can handle Reed, a lot of people would have walked away after their first loss and said, this is too tough, I don't want to go through this. I was raised, you know, somebody comes after you wrongfully, you come back to your fighter and you get tougher and you get tougher. I got tougher, I took the case to court, and this past July I won the first defamation lawsuit of any public official, at least that's what I've been told in the state of Nevada. 10 jurors unanimously held that the things that was said were not only defamatory, they were not only false, they were defamatory. And I was awarded like $150,000, which my attorney took 130 of them. So during the trial, I found out that the op research was done by Harry Reid. Harry Reid's op researcher, a guy named Cooper. Okay, and the only witness against me at trial was Harry Reid's son, Leif Reid. Reid was behind all that stuff. And when I won that court case, and I knew that those allegations couldn't stick against me anymore, I said, you know, I'm going to run against Reid. There isn't anybody in the race that has a credible chance of winning, so I put myself into that race. And within 10 days, the first poll that came out had me had 11, and like I mentioned, we've been doing some sense. So your answer is, I'm going to run on these issues that I'm talking about. I'm going to stand up to Reid. If he comes after me, I'm coming right back after him. I'm not worried about what he can do to me. He can try to vaporize anybody he wants. He took a shot at me, and I won, and I'll win again in November. Yes?
In the polls with the independents and the Tea Parties, from everything we can see, is they're going to put enough money forward, just like they did in Massachusetts, to bring it to Nevada to get rid of our illustrious senator. The point is that I think that the people of the state are asking is we want to put the best person up there that we can to send him to Washington to do the job we want. If you're going to go into Washington and you get elected, you're going to be a junior senator. What are you going to do to make sure that you don't get swallowed up by the cesspool that's there now?
Okay, good questions. I want to start first with the money issue. It will not be hard to raise money in the general election, and whoever gets there is going to have enough money to run against Reid. One of the things people talk about is Reid's going to have all this money, how can anybody compete with him? There are groups all around the country that are going to come in and put money in. Furthermore, when I got in the race, and it showed that I was beating Reid by 11%, in 4 days, $100,000 was raised over the internet by over 3,000 donors. Small money. small contributions, but a large number of donors. So there'll be people around the country that are going to contribute and will have the money to do it. To get specifically to your question, you as the people of Nevada have got to look at who's running and determine who they believe will go back to Washington, D.C. and represent the people of Nevada with true convictions and not back down from the special interest groups. But I'm trying to tell you from the time I got up here, I want to get into public service for the right reasons, I believe. I don't have the desire to be the majority leader. My desire is to go back to Washington, D.C. And when I get ready to retire, when I retire, that my kids and my family and I feel that I was the best U.S. Senator I could possibly be for the people of Nevada, and that you would appreciate that. You may not appreciate every single vote I make. I'm sure you're probably going to disagree with me on some, but I promise you're going to agree with me on most, and you're going to believe that what I voted on is what I talked about and have true convictions for it. And that's what I'm going to do when I go back to D.C. Every candidate can get up here and tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to get up here and tell you what I truly believe, and I'll exhibit that when I get to D.C. Anything else?
Are you going to debate Sue Loudon?
Yeah, and that's a great point. Our campaign is going to ask each of the counties, or suggest that each of the counties here in the state, the Republican parties in the county, to host a debate with each of the candidates. That would allow the Republican Party in each county to raise money that they can use toward voter registration or whatever else they need, and shore up the Republican base. At the same time, each county will have the candidates out here to debate. I will be here at each county. I don't know whether Sue and the others will, but I will be here, and I look forward to it.
What's your view on Yucca Mountain?
Again, major distinction between not only myself and Harry Reid, but also myself and Sue Loudon. I believe Yucca Mountain should be used as a nuclear reprocessing facility. We have spent tens of billions of dollars to build this project, and all Reid talks about is how he's closed it and wasted that money, like he's wasted a lot of other taxpayer money. We could use Yucca Mountain as a nuclear reprocessing facility, as they do in other countries like France, where they reprocess 95% of the nuclear spent fuel. This would allow Nevadans to create thousands and thousands of jobs, for much needed jobs for their citizens, and create hundreds of millions of dollars in tax revenue that is desperately needed for the state. It would turn UNLV and Nevada into the leading research institutions in the whole world, and there's very little, if any, risk. If you look, nuclear waste is being transferred across our highways every day, and there has not been a nuclear accident. Reid will use scare tactics. This is what the people of Nevada need. I really believe, and I'm trying to run on this, I'm running on common sense principles over political correctness. The political correct way is to say, we don't want nuclear storage in Nevada. But the common sense principles, we need the jobs, we need the money, and there's very little risk. When was the last time there was a nuclear accident in our country? Mid-70s, almost 40 years. And we'll talk about the burdens and regulations that our country imposes on people. For us to build a nuclear facility, reactor in the country, it takes 10 years of permitting. 10 years just to be able to get through the permit stage. In China, they're going to build 72 new nuclear plants over the next 10 years. How are we going to compete with these other countries when we hamstring ourselves?
That's right on as far as I'm concerned. My next question is, how close are you in Clark County? Because that's the telltale sign. I appreciate you coming out here, and visiting with us, but I don't think you're going to have a problem.
Well, I certainly hope that turns out that way in the primary, because I need your help now too. If you talk about in the general against Harry Reid in Clark County, virtually every poll has me beaten right now in Clark County. Do I think I'm going to beat them? No, but if you stay close enough, you're going to be okay. And I will do well in Clark County, and I should do well in Clark County. My family was raised there. My mother and father have done a lot there. Hopefully, I believe I've done a lot there, and hopefully people will understand that. And the other point is this. Let me give you an example of something about how the feelings of Reid are. This is in Clark County. My mother is a Democrat, and she's on the city council. And she's the only Democrat in our family. When I first got in the race, it actually was really funny because I won the defamation lawsuit on a Monday. We got my dad out of the hospital on Thursday. He was in the hospital for 6 weeks with a surgery that we didn't know if he would make it or not. And his birthday was on a Saturday. I didn't want to tell anybody I was going to run against Reid because I didn't want to give my dad a heart attack when he just got out of the hospital. So I didn't tell anybody, and it got leaked out in the paper. My mom heard, and she wouldn't even speak to me at my dad's birthday party. And then she wouldn't speak to me for a week. And then she called me over the house and she said, Danny, why would you run against Reed? Why won't you talk with me first? You can't beat him. He's too powerful. He's got too much money. He's going to destroy you. I said, Mom, I don't need to hear that. I hear that from everybody else. Because remember, I ran before anybody else knew what the polls were. About a week later, my mom called me back over. She said, Danny, I got so many Democrat friends of mine that are really upset at Reed, and they're not going to vote for him. And then she calls me over later on, and a week or so later, and says, Danny, I can't believe this. Most of my Democrat friends said they're going to vote for you. Now all I hear from her is, Danny, you got to win this primary. If you win the primary, you're going to win this thing. I'll win Clark County. Or I'll do very close enough to win this thing.
I think you'll win. I think you keep it a positive. Because I think there's so many Republican and Democrats that are just tired of the last thing as well. And I think that's one of the best tactics you can do.
Well, with respect to the primary,
Get the Democrats on your side.
with respect to the primary, I believe any Republican that tries to go out and attack another Republican opponent personally, it's going to turn off voters, and it's going to end up backfiring. What we have done in our campaign is we have tried to distinguish ourselves from the other ponies, and primarily Sue, because me and her are the ones that are closely intertwined. And what we have done is we've talked about the different philosophies. See, I believe that we should eliminate all federal pork in the government. I don't believe the Constitution allows the federal government to spend pork in individual states. If a state like Florida wants to build a bridge to allow turtles to cross over the bridge so they don't get hit by their cars, to let the people of Florida pay for that. How can it be constitutionally permissible, let alone right, to force 49 other states to pay for these type of projects? I'm completely against federal pork. Now, Sue has come out and said that Harry Reid has failed the people of Nevada because he hasn't brought home enough pork. That if she's elected, she's going to bring home the fair share of pork. I want to join the movement that is now going on in Washington, D.C., where you have Senator Burr, Senator Mintz, Senator Corbin, where they're going out, they're all taking the lead. We're going to stand together, and we're going to eliminate all pork. So that's a distinction that we have. I don't think that's I know that that's not a personal attack on Sue. It's a difference of opinion. I mentioned earlier what was the other thing I mentioned on already? Well, the first bailout. I was 1,000% against the first bailout, and she had to debate whether she would or not. I think we're way overtaxed. I would never put a tax on an individual, on an employee that's being hired in the state. I think in the employee tax that we have right now in the state was a horrendous tax. When she was a state senator, she voted not only to tax every employee that was hired, but she overrode Governor Miller, who wanted to eliminate, exclude small businesses. Now, I mean, I don't see how anybody can think it's right. And again, everybody's open to opinion, but I don't believe we should tax employers every time they hire a new employee. The only way you get a tax break is if you fire an employee. You've got 2 minutes of unemployment now. Those are the issues that I'm talking about in my campaign that distinguish myself from Sue. I have a lot of people that work close friends of Sue and I that are now in her camp that are attacking me and saying I'm coming after her personally. Those aren't personal attacks. Those are the differences in political philosophies that you people here have to decide which ones you believe in. If you believe in the other side, I understand you probably won't vote for me. If you believe in what I'm saying, I hope that you will. Now, on the other side, I'm getting, Sue's camp is sending out all these email blasts to people around the world. I'm sure some of you may have gotten them, that the Brady organization endorsed me the last 2 days of my campaign that I ran in the Secretary of State's race, which is really incredulous because the person, I had a volunteer who contacted the Brady organization without my knowledge at the second to the last day of the campaign and got their endorsement. He's now a paid consultant on Sue Loudon's staff. And now they're hammering me saying that it's my fault that this paid consultant on her staff went without my knowledge to get this endorsement. The paid consultant on her staff has even admitted that he did it without my knowledge or consent. See, I think that's wrong. That's not a political difference. That's a little underhanded stuff. But she can do it. I'm still going to win this thing. I'm not worried about it, but I'm not going to come after her personally. I'm going to talk about these differences. I believe there's a movement around our state that they want people to go back to Washington, D.C., whether it's the Tea Party people, the 9/11 people, the Ron Paul people, whatever you want to call them. They want people to go back to Washington, D.C., and represent the letter of the Constitution and do what's best for the state. And I'm going to do that, and I'm running on those principles. Common sense as opposed to political correctness is going to win this race. Yes?
What is your position on national health care?
That's great. I want to answer that. I also want you to know I have been a lifetime member of the NRA before my Secretary of State's race. I've always been fully supportive of the NRA, and we have Do we bring them in?
Yeah.
We have my statements there for any of you that want to know. I don't know who's getting all these robocalls or not, because email blasts or not, because I get emails from friends saying, look what I just received. So if you have a question, go ahead. Healthcare, great question, and it takes us back to getting into race, and I believe why I moved into the forefront right away. In August of this year, if you remember, Harry Reid refused to meet with you, the people he's supposed to serve, to discuss his healthcare plan. He said you guys are evil mongers if you didn't agree with him. So I held my own healthcare town hall, and we had over 300 people show up, many of which are Reid supporters. You know, Reid sent out his campaign, I got a copy of it, sent out an email blast encouraging his supporters to come ask me the tough questions at the healthcare and try to embarrass me like my positions were sound. We discussed the healthcare plan with his supporters, and we talked 4 points we can do to substantially reduce our healthcare costs without cost of taxpayers $1 additional, and it's market driven, and you don't have any more government involvement. You allow people to purchase, and I came out with this in August before all the Republican talking points came out. You allow people to purchase insurance across state lines. You create more competition that way, and every time in our economy we've created more competition, we've created a better product at a lower cost. Currently, 70% of all of our health insurance is written by one company here, Sierra United. If we allow more competition, we're going to get a better product at a lower cost. The second area is the tort reform everybody talks about. When we cap non-economic damages, we can help eliminate this defensive medicine the doctors are performing each year. Medicine they don't feel that patients need, but they're just worried about a lawsuit. Do you realize how much, what do you think? Make a guess, somebody, of what you think doctors spend on defensive medicine each year?
Hundreds of thousands.
180 to $210 billion a year. It's frightening. Third way is you enforce the federal law that's already in place that Medicare is to be the payee of last resort. 13% of all Medicare recipients have private insurance. However, the government, Medicare Department of the government does not go after those private insurance companies well enough to collect their payments. They just make payments themselves because it's taxpayer dollars. Who cares if we spend it? The fourth area is if we would eliminate or at least substantially reduce these state mandates that are in our insurance policies. A state mandate is basically this. The state says every citizen in their state that buys insurance has to have this coverage, whether the citizens want this coverage or not. It's contrary to everything that our country is based upon, where our country says you go out, you work hard, and with your hard-earned dollars you pick what you want to buy based upon the cost and the benefits you're going to have. We have 2,000 state mandates around the country. Nevada has 56, which is one of the highest in the state. How much of your insurance premiums do you think the state mandates are? To blow your way. 20 to 50% of insurance premiums are state mandates. Nevada's got to be closer to 50. 50% of your insurance premium is based upon what the government tells you you have to have, not what you want. You do those 4 simple things, your insurance premiums are going to come down way more than 50%, and you don't have any more taxpayer dollars. We don't raise a deficit. We don't have government involvement. The other area that we can do to help improve our health insurance without having any more government involvement is get away from the employer-based insurance plan to an employee individual ownership plan. And the way you do that is you encourage employers to put the money, instead of buying insurance for the employees, put it in a health savings account. You allow the individual to go buy his or her own insurance, and then they can keep that insurance with them when they go from job to job. We need to also encourage individuals who don't have insurance but are self-employed to go out and buy their own insurance. But you want to hear one of the most ridiculous tax laws that we have? If an employer buys insurance for his employee, they get a tax break. If an individual who's self-employed buys insurance for themselves, they don't get a tax break. Is that the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard? Level the playing field for individual ownerships, individual businesses, unemployed people who want to buy their own insurance, and give them the same tax breaks, and you're going to have more individual ownership. You have this portable insurance that they can take with them from job to job. Most of these instances where people are denied insurance because of pre-existing conditions are because they had insurance, they lost their job, or they left their job, and now they go to and try to get new insurance and they won't provide it. If you allow people to have these portable insurance, you don't have those problems. They keep that insurance with them as long as they can pay for it. Now, does that solve all the problems? No, but it solves a large number of the problems that are out there, and it doesn't cost the taxpayer $1, and you don't have another taxpayer involved. Real quickly, with Harry Reid's program, if it was so great, why is he doing it behind closed doors? Why won't he do it in front of C-SPAN like they promised? and they're voted on it Christmas Eve, and they're making all the changes behind closed doors. If it's so great, why does he have to bribe so many senators just to get it passed? If you want to talk about one of the most ridiculous things ever is, how can he pass a bill that says 49 people in 49 other states are going to pay the health insurance, the Medicare payments for one state, and that state doesn't have to pay anything? I mean, first of all, that's unconstitutional as can be. But how can anybody think that's right? Craziest thing about the insurance plan, even more than that, is this. According to Harry Reid's plan, if you're uninsured, if you don't buy insurance for yourself, you get taxed. However, if you buy too good of insurance for yourself, you get taxed again. No insurance, too good insurance. They want to tell you what's a perfect insurance, then you won't get taxed. It's crazy. Why? Now, you don't get taxed if you have too good of insurance, if you're a government employee, or if you're a union member. They exempted that out in the last part of the bill. Isn't that great? And how about for you that are, if any of you here are construction workers? Reid's bill originally had an exemption for businesses of, you didn't have to pay for your insurance. You wouldn't get fined if you didn't provide health insurance for your employees, if you had 50 employees or more. However, for construction companies and workers, he took them out of that exemption. Now you get fined if you don't provide insurance at 5 employees or more. For the industry that's suffering the worst in the state, and I know the construction industry, they're down 60–70%. They're gonna pose even a greater burden on them than every other industry. You gotta wonder how Harry Reid can be so out of touch with what's so important here in Nevada. That's my health insurance response. Yes.
How do you feel about the federal government owning 87% of our state?
So great, because all the things I want to talk about, I always get in these questions I would have forgot about. It's wrong. We need to release that. I'm bringing out my economic recovery proposals and plan next week. One of them is going to be this. We have 87, or I've heard anywhere from 85 to 87% of the state is owned by the federal government. We are going to demand the federal government and other western states that have so much federally owned land. I'm going to work with them, but we're going to demand that the federal government release some of this property for 2 things. One, for the use that so many people want, being able to hike and hunt and so forth, but also to help spur economic activity. There's so much land that is owned by the federal government that can be used to bring in businesses here in the state, and we can entice these businesses to come in here with this land. It won't cost the government any money. It won't cost the state any money. And what it will do is it'll create jobs for the state, and it'll create taxes for the state and these new companies. It's a no-brainer, should be done. In Nevada, in Clark County, there is so much BLM land that is prime commercial land that the BLM is sitting on, holding it away from us here, the citizens here in the state, and we need that land back. And that's part of the proposal. Yes.
Currently, the NEPA Act and the Endangered Species Act is being used by the outside interest groups as a hindrance and as a tool to harm the existing users of projects like the Federal Water Project and public lands. Most of NEPA and the Endangered Species Act, most of it is deals with Western issues. And do you think that in Washington you will ever be able to convince Washington to scale back on that? Or is that something we are going to be stuck with forever?
The deficit's the worst problem we face right now, the spending. That's the biggest long-term problem that we are facing, and if we don't change it, we can never get out of this. We have gone from a point where we were a country that didn't care at all about protecting our environment, and now we are at such a point that we want to protect it so strongly, we're handcuffing our businesses, our small businesses, the people that are trying to survive here. We talked about the smelt issue in the San Joaquin Valley, where people are losing their family-owned long-term businesses because of these type of regulations, the desert tortoise issues that are killing construction workers that are trying to build these environmental issues. Leaving the hotel today at Fallon, we talked with a government employee who's in charge of inspecting the mines and had to follow the regulations, and he says the same thing. It's these permits that these people need to get started, are all these environmental permits. It's not safety permits, and it takes 7 years to get them. If we don't get the handcuffs off our businesses here in our country, we are never going to compete economically around the world, and we are in for a world of trouble. You need to vote people in office who can go back there and have the conviction to stand up to some of these environmental groups. And I know Harry, I don't know if you know, but this is Harry Reid's camera over there. She follows us around, so they take these things. So if they can pick something they can use against me, they can do that. And you know, the thing is, though, again, I'm gonna run on conviction. I'm not running a soft campaign, a risk-free campaign. When I first got into the race, everybody told me, don't come out in favor of Yucca Mountain, it's gonna blow up in your face. I firmly believe that's the right thing to do, and I'm doing it. I firmly believe this issue on the environmental rules that are making it nearly impossible for our businesses to succeed. We need a change, and I will go back to Washington D.C. and fight with other like-minded senators to get it done. Yes.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but all of the federally mandated wilderness areas, of which Nevada has a significant amount, the regulations for that essentially deny access to people with significant disabilities, including a lot of our returning servicemen. Although the regs give mention in there that they comply with the ADA. If you work with disability, you know it's not realistic. I would like for you to look at that when you get the question.
I certainly would, and I will say, I mean, this is for all disabilities, and I certainly would be supportive of that. But with respect to the veterans, and I'm fortunate I didn't have to serve in the military. My grandfather served in the Korean War and World War II. There was nobody in our country that done more, no legal people have done more in our country than veterans. And here we have poor medical service for veterans, poor benefits for veterans, but at the same time we're providing medical treatment to people that are in our country illegally. We're providing better treatment to terrorists that come in our country and try to kill Americans. Get our priorities back, take care of the people that made us the greatest country in the world, and the safest country in the world, and get rid of coddling all these people that don't deserve it. Yes?
Could you talk a little bit about illegal immigrants?
Again, the stand of Republican lines, which I certainly would agree with, building a fence to stop people, illegal immigrants from coming over here and securing the border is very important. But if you really want to solve the illegal immigration problem, you got to get to the core of the problem, and that's the enticements that we provide for illegal immigrants to come into our country. If we would enforce the laws that say people who are not in our country legally are not entitled to taxpayer health care coverage, if we would enforce the laws that say people that are in our country illegally are not entitled to taxpayer education, if we would enforce the laws and fine and penalize employers that hire people illegally in our country, you would get a lot, if not most, of the illegal immigrants going back to their country and not in ours. And that's my answer to that.
Okay, and you know, Hispanics have really strong core family values, and I think they think more like Republicans or independents, but they are swayed by the Democrat something or another. How are you going to get those votes?
Well, you know, that's the thing. The Democrats cater to what do you think the Democrats really believe in this philosophy that anybody illegally should come here and we're going to give citizenship? Do you think they really believe that we need illegal immigrants right now to work our jobs when people are dying for jobs here in our own country? First of all, the answer to the job issue, if we really need other workers to come in because the American workforce can't provide for the job, then all you do is change the INS rules and allow more work permits for a limited period of time. And when they expire, you make sure that we need those workers to get rid of them. Common sense proposals. How can you get, I mean, the Democrats they do this all the time. They're the Big Ten, because they're the Big Ten. They'll say whatever, they promise the moon but deliver a mountain of debt every time, right? They promise everything. Obama's promised everything, but you don't deliver. That's what they've done with the Hispanic population. They promise them everything. Free handouts, more entitlements, they want their votes, but they don't mean it, and they don't deliver it. Yeah, to me, it's the same with the African Americans. For years, to this day, 90-some% probably go Democrat because they think the Democrats are taken care of. But they're in worse shape now than they were 10 years ago or 15 years ago, at least economically, because the Democrats promise them everything, they buy it, and then they don't go for the party that has the real values that have made America great. First of all, you talked about the hardworking, Hispanic people are hardworking people. The Republicans want to reward people who work hard. You want to be board people that take risks and are willing to put in more time. I mean, those are the values that have made us great, and people of all ethnicities should be Republicans because of those values. There are times Republicans are straight, and I'm not going to say we've always been right. We have made some mistakes, but the basic concept of our conservative principles are those. I don't have an answer how we get them back. It's hard to bribe somebody with what they want to hear. You just have to try to educate them that you're not going to get it. You're going to be stuck in the same rut. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I heard that there was a statement in one of these goofy laws that we're supposed to be swallowing about if something is approved in the bills, say like the Obama plan, that once it's passed, there's wording in this bill that says that it can never be changed.
Yeah, what you're talking about is a health care bill, and I read that if it was passed, read it, put in the language that it could never be passed. I don't understand how that could work. And I didn't, right now the bill looks like it's not going to get passed, at least in that form, and I doubt that with Brown's victory that will be passed. But what you said is correct. It was reported that way, and it's something Reed is trying to push through, that he's going to push through an unpopular bill, a bill that the people of Nevada and most of the country don't want, and put in a provision that would not allow anybody else in any future Congresses or sessions to change it. But it's not going to happen now. At least not unless they get Scott Brown to sign for it. I don't think that's going to happen.
Three-fourths, I don't know if you're aware of this, but about three-fourths of the teachers in rural Nevada are Republican. And so my question was, what's your stance on education, national education policy?
Yeah. See, again, I'm the person, I'm going to give you my political philosophy. Government was created for a limited few purposes, and we should do those purposes great. We shouldn't be spread out and trying to solve all the social ills. My dad used to say when he coached basketball, I wanted my team to do one or two things and do them great. I didn't want to try to do, and I'd love to play against a team that tried to do 5 or 6 things because they can't do anything very well. That's the problem we have in our government. We have a government that's trying to solve all the social ills that can't do anything very well. I think the education decision should be left to the states and localities where the education is being done. And the federal government should not have involved in that. Part of our economic plan that we're going to release next week is going to talk about scaling back the Department of Education and only keep the certain things that are essential, like the Head Start program and some others. I'm against standardized testing. I don't think, just me personally, I'll tell you, I never did well on my standardized test, but I graduated with 3.76 GPA. I finished third in my law school. I finished third in my law school class, and I don't know how low my SAT scores were, or LSAT scores were. You know, those things I don't think are an indication of how well somebody does. I can just say, with respect, my general philosophy of education is free competition. Arizona had a lot of problems with their education system. They're now allowing more and more charter schools that are competing with the public schools. The public schools are getting better, and so are the charter schools. So you create more competition, you get a better product. But that's a better question for our next governor and our legislators, elected education. If we want to reduce our budget, the federal government has to make some tough decisions to get rid of some of these programs they have no business being in. Maybe unpopular with some people. I don't know you as a teacher how you would have felt, but I certainly believe we need to get out of the business. We need to get out of business as the federal government was intended to be. And, I'm also against all federal mandated laws where the federal government tells the states you've got to provide these things and we're not going to provide the funding for them. In fact, I don't think the federal government should tell the states any of those things. I'm a big state right proponent. And that's one of the unfunded mandates you referred to. Yes?
On the immigration employer hiring people, I'm a farmer, we hire them all the time. We get documents and everything. We have no way to research and make sure those documents are legal. So it kind of, in my opinion, we have a photograph and everything, and they come back and they're illegal. There's no way we can research that stuff and find out.
agree with you, you shouldn't have to. You should, the government, we should be able to have better proof of who's in our country legally and not, and they're working towards that now. And some of you may not agree with the Real ID Act, which was passed after the 9/11 deal, which is a identification that they can't tamper with, copy, and they will be able to illegal immigrants or others, terrorists or anybody else should be able to come in and have those false identifications. You have to have a system in place that the employers can check it. There are a lot of companies though in the finding right now that are not trying to get the proper documentation, and they keep having the same problems over and over again. You can't start by eliminating those. I want to say a couple of things in closing, okay? First of all, I want to thank you again for taking the time to come and listen to me. It's very nice of you. Second of all, if you are supportive of myself, I'm running a very competitive primary. I will be outspent. My opponent's going to go on TV next month, and we don't have that luxury. But what I have that I know that nobody else in the race had, I have a really great group of grassroots support from throughout the state. I ran 3 years ago for the Secretary of State's office. I have a lot of people that are helping me from there. I've spent a lot of time in these rural counties before, and a lot of people are helping me. What I hope that is if you are willing to support me, you will go tell your friends, go tell your family, say, look at this Danny Tarkanian guy, he's somebody that you would want to vote for, and if they are, sign up as a supporter on our website. Andrea, the lady in the green over there, is my grassroots coordinator. She'll work with you. I can win this race with less money, but I need the help of the people on the ground, and I'm asking you, if you're willing to do so, please do so. I greatly appreciate it. See, I believe I am finishing Ronald Reagan's final campaign. In 1986, Ronald Reagan came back to Nevada. He asked the people of Nevada to vote for him one final time by voting against the tax and spend liberal Harry Reid. Back 24 years ago, Ronald Reagan knew Harry Reid was bad for the people of Nevada. 24 years later, I am sure that we are going to win this last one for the gift club. Thank you guys for coming out.
One last thing that I'm going to say, and then I know you forgot to mention this one, but if you are not a registered Republican and you like what you heard today, this, like Danny said, is a very tight primary. Nevada has what's called closed primary elections. If you are not registered as a Republican, so if you are a Democrat, independent, nonpartisan, you cannot vote for Danny. In the primary. In general, you can. If you can't get him through the primary, you can't get him to take down Harry Reid. So we've got voter registration forms right here. It takes you 2 minutes. It doesn't cost you a cent to mail it either. The other thing, debates.
I talked about the debate.
Oh, you did? I must have watched that.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. Thank you again.
Thank you guys again. If there's any other specific questions, I'll be here for a few more minutes.
We have to leave 10 minutes early because of the snow.
Okay.
I apologize for jumping on you, young lady. But I'm sure if you're going to be for me, you're probably going to hear a lot about it. I don't know if you're for him or not. You're just doing a job.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
That's all right. I'm
nice
sorry.
to meet you. No, I understand.
You probably have to get pretty thick skin because
I'm learning.
Yeah, because it's tough. It's going to be a tough race.
Yes, it's going to be a long
and there's a lot of people that are even worse than I am.
Yes.
You know, he just makes my boil. I've been in a lot of meetings with him over. I'm involved with a group called CETA. Okay.
What is
it's
the acronym?
Sustainable Energy Development Associates. And we are involved with a lot of alternative energy. And I went to seminars with him. And all he does is he starts talking and he gets up and bashes everybody. And I don't go to that. I'm not here to bash anybody. He just has never.